Hi, thanks for joining me for this session. I am excited to be speaking at Litmus Live. I know that there are so many good presentations here, so I really appreciate that you came to mine. So we're going to talk about email and how it's not that easy, but it's not that difficult. That is our topic for the next half hour. My name is Jean Jennings. I have my own boutique consulting firm, Email Optimization Shop. So I help companies make their email marketing more effective and more profitable. I do play with AI. You're going to learn a little bit more about how I use AI later on. But I do strategic as well as tactical consulting. I often will step in a fractional role, director or VP level. I do a lot of workshop training, both publicly available that individuals can sign up for. You can find out about that on my site. And I do a lot of corporate training where I customize my presentation specifically for an organization or a company. I've got a blog and an email newsletter. They're both free. So if you like the presentation, please check out the website, sign up for the newsletter, check out the blog. Have sort of a special deal going on right now. On January 1st, to welcome the new year, I am going to choose one lucky email newsletter subscriber at random to get free registration to one of my online training workshops. They're 6 hours over 2 days. They're typically cost $675, so that's kind of a nice win. So sign up for the newsletter, enjoy the content we send out every week, and then stick around and see if in early January if you win a free registration to one of my workshops. So what are we going to talk about today? Obviously, email marketing. But the focus of this presentation is really myth busting. I've been talking to a lot of my friends in the industry, a lot of people who've been around a while, like I have. There's a lot of kind of misinformation out there now about email marketing. So we're going to talk about what some of those myths out there in the universe are. We're going to try to tell you why not to do them, but we're also going to tell you what to do instead. So it's funny because I started collecting from LinkedIn and other sources things I read that were sort of myths or sort of not right, sort of bad advice. And there were a few things. Take a look at these little post-it notes. Have you guys seen or heard any of this on the internet, on LinkedIn? There's a lot out there. It's nice to see so many people interested in email, but it is concerning to read things that are just kind of blatantly wrong. And I feel bad. I don't want people who are getting into email marketing, I don't want their marketing teams to go in the wrong direction. So that was really why I put this presentation together, to try to help counter some of the information out there that's not quite right, but also give you some other options. So that's the idea of, everybody wants an easy button. Oh, we can just make it easy. It's not quite that easy, but it really isn't that hard when you understand what's going on. So let's tackle the first one. The first one I thought we would talk about today is that there is a best day and time to send email. These reports have been out there for years. It's funny, recently I was working on my reunion committee for graduate school, and one of the members of my committee sent me the latest report to make sure that we sent on the best day and time to send email every week. And unfortunately, I had to let him know that, yep, this is a myth. I know. Wouldn't it be easy if just sending at Thursdays at 3 was the way to guarantee success? But think about it for a minute. If everybody took the advice in those reports and everybody started sending at the same day and time every week, or sometimes they give you different days and times based on a calendar, then the best time to send email would be any time but that, because everybody's email inboxes would be completely jammed at that point. So that's why this is really kind of a myth. But the good news is it's not hard to figure out when your best day and time to send email is. I wrote a blog post about this earlier this year. There are actually 5 different ways to do it. None of them are that difficult. They're not quite as easy as looking at a third-party report, but they're going to give you much better results. So let me talk through them. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but you can check out the blog post, which I've linked, which I've sourced at the bottom of the slide. The first is just reason and logic. Just think about, when do I want to reach people? When might be a good time to send? One of my first, my first big job in email was head of email product development and marketing for Reed Elsevier's B2B organization. We're the largest B2B publisher in the US at that point. And one of the things that I figured out through trial and error was when we were sending newsletters to business people, it seemed like we got better engagement when we sent it right before lunch. And my theory there was, I know for myself, I would often sit at my desk and read industry publications online at lunch. I figured they were doing that too. So reason and logic can actually go a long way to help you find the best day and time to send. If you want to get a little more scientific about it, look at your website traffic. I had a client in the education market. We basically looked to see when people were active on the website looking for information about the degrees that they were offering. We found there were 2 days, 2 weekdays in the afternoons when traffic was really high. So we started sending at those times, and that seemed to work very well for them. Historical data. You can always look back and try to see what's worked in the past. Again, by analyzing that data, you can get a feel for what seemed to be better or worse. A/B split test. I've done this for a lot of clients. I had a client that specialized in like swag for trade shows. And so we did some testing around which the best day and time would send. We were already sending 2 days a week. We wanted to add a third. And by doing an A/B split test, we were able to figure out which of those other days was going to be the best. Finally, this is probably the easiest of the bunch, send time optimization. Most marketing automation platforms now will optimize the time they send, either optimize it in aggregate for your whole list, or some of them will actually send in each individual person at the best time. So that's another way to figure out when the best day or time to send is without using those third-party reports that really aren't much use. So there's the first one. Let's talk about this myth about text-only or image-only emails performing better. I see this a lot. A lot of times this is tied to, oh, there are problems with images. They'll hurt your deliverability. You won't get to the inbox. You should send text-only emails. I also hear on the other side a lot of people who say, oh, text image-only emails are so much better because there's no text that, a company could read and decide to, send you to the junk mail because of something you have written because they can't read text. All of this, unfortunately, total myth. There's not one that's better than the other, and all of those things that I just mentioned, none of those are really valid. Maybe some of them used to be valid a long time ago, but they're not valid now. So what should you do instead? You should design for image blocking. This is also a bit of an old idea, but hear me out. This is actually a screenshot of an email from my inbox. How ugly is this? This email is pretty much all images. What you see there are what happens when images are blocked, which I have. A lot of people still have by default. A lot of email clients still block them by default. When you enable images, it's a lot prettier. But what you really want to do is, so it's not about all image, it's not about all text, it's about making sure if you want it to be read, even if images are disabled, that you make it rich text. There's a lot of copy here that could be rich text very easily. So the key is to have a decent mix. If you have a product you're selling that is more visual, you're going to have more images. But if you're in the B2B space and really it's all about the copy, then you really shouldn't have a lot of images in there to kind of distract from what the copy is doing. So ignore those things that say, oh no, send text only, oh no, send image only. Come up with a good mix based on what your product needs, but make sure anything you want read, like swipe, earn, save, repeat here, or get set for healthy fall, make sure that's rich text, not part of an image. Let's jump to subject lines. This is one of my favorite ones. Sometimes people say, oh, short subject lines perform better. Other times they say, no, the subject lines, they have to be really long. That's the key to success. So here's the thing about this. It doesn't really matter how long the subject line is. What matters is what the subject line says. So all of this short versus long stuff, complete myth. You've got to disregard it. But here's what you should do. You should focus on the first 25 characters of your subject line. The same is true of your pre-header text. Now, hear me out. It's not that it should only be 25 characters. It's that the first 25 characters are all you can guarantee are going to be seen by the recipient because of truncation. So this is an actual case study from a client a couple years ago. Their original subject line was 12 Days of Christmas, day 9, 20% off every order. Our test against that subject line was 20% off every order, 12 Days of Christmas, day 9. If you look at those first 25 characters on each of these, you'll see that The first one, the control, basically looked the same every day they sent it because day 8, day 7, when we flipped that information, we put the offer at the front, much more enticing, much more engaging, 20% off every order. That's really what your recipients care about. They don't care that you happen to have a 12 days of Christmas sale. When we made this change, we got a 14% lift in revenue per email. So revenue generated per email. You might say 14%, that's not a lot. Actually, 14% is pretty good, especially since this change didn't cost us anything. If you get that 14% lift, what do you need to get that? 5, maybe 6 times? All of a sudden, you've doubled your revenue. And by implementing things like this, and again, it's not about the specific subject line, it's about the concept of the first 25 characters getting the most important information in there so that it's seen, even if the subject line is truncated, which it usually is. That's the kind of stuff that is going to help you have a positive impact on your email marketing program, not just today or tomorrow, but on an ongoing basis. Let's do another one. Oh my gosh, this is a big one. AI creates better email marketing than any human. I was at a conference recently and someone from the stage said, AI, ChatGPT is the smartest person in the room because they've ingested everything on the internet and they have so much information and that's what makes them so brilliant. I don't know about you, but information alone is not what makes anyone brilliant. It's how you leverage it. So this is a myth. I think that people are coming around. I think a lot of people are probably tired of hearing about AI. Raise your hand if you are, but hear me out. Back in June at Email Innovations World, I took a poll of attendees, all email marketing professionals, asking them what they were using AI for, ChatGPT for. Copy was far and away number one, 83%. Crafting email campaigns from scratch, about a third. Creating charts and graphs for reports, about 25%. So copy was overwhelmingly what people were using it for, but I don't think it's really that great at copywriting. So here are 3 use cases to collaborate with AI. I'm very collaborative when I work with AI. I don't send it off and do something. I actually kind of work through it. I micromanage it pretty much. One of my favorite things to do is to enhance my marketing foundations. We're going to talk about them a little later, but things like features, benefits, advantages, key messages, obstacles, and how to overcome them. It's really good if you give it a starting point. It's really good at fleshing those out, adding to them. Really an excellent use of AI. What else? I love creating a custom persona for my clients based on their target audience description and then asking that persona to give me feedback, good and bad, on the marketing pieces as I work on them. I've got some really great feedback for this. It's really fun. I'm writing about it. I teach it in my workshops. So if you're not doing this, figure out how, because it is one of the very best uses I have found for AI. Finally, the last one that was on my quiz, charts and graphs. It's kind of a rote task. I kind of like doing it in Excel, so it's kind of a bummer to do it in AI, but it is a lot faster. And what I've found is with a custom AI that I have created, I can feed in raw data in a spreadsheet. It can kick out my standard charts and graphs for me in my brand colors, in the formats I want, much more quickly than I could do it myself. A low unsubscribe rate means subscribers like your content. I've been hearing this a lot. Oh, the click-throughs aren't great, but nobody ever unsubscribes. I got to tell you, this is a myth. And here's why. There's a new metric out there. I wrote a blog post about it when it came out. It's called Email Quality Score. Basically, it compares your unsubscribes to your unique clicks. And if your unique clicks are higher than your unsubscribes, it says, hey, you're good. It's a good email, high quality. This is a diagnostic metric. It's not a business metric, and it's not actually right. They always say the opposite of love is hate. The opposite of love is indifference. So if people aren't unsubscribing from your email newsletter, but they also aren't reading it, that's indifference. That's not love. And so you can't really look at unsubscribes and say, if they're low, you can't say they love your content. If they're high, you can say there's something wrong. So I like using this metric and I use this a lot, but I don't call it a quality score because this really has nothing to do with quality. It has nothing to do with whether they like your content. So don't be fooled by this. Don't fall into that trap. Let's do another one. Always resend to those who don't open. I've got to tell you, so many of my clients, their ESPs will actually prompt them to do this a day or two after the initial send. It drives me absolutely crazy because my experience with resending to those who don't open is that you don't get very good performance. You don't get good opens. You don't get good clicks. You often will see unsubscribes and spam complaints that are high. This is just not something I do with my clients. This is a myth that you should always do this. It's just not a great practice, especially if you're doing it on a frequent basis. It's driving people away from your list. It's driving them away from looking at your emails. So what's better? Resending to those who click but don't convert. I call these strategic resends. So let me explain. It sounds a little counterintuitive at first, but the idea is if someone clicked, but they didn't convert. So let's say they clicked through to download a white paper, but then they didn't actually download it. By doing a resend, we typically see tremendous results. You'd say, yeah, but they clicked through and they weren't interested and they went away. But here's my thought. I think a lot of times when they click through and they get to this decision point, I think either they get distracted, maybe the phone rings and it's their boss, maybe their child comes in with a scraped knee. Maybe they realize they need to check with someone. Maybe they need to check a date, or they want to go talk to their husband if they're booking a vacation or a cruise, or their wife. There's something that they need to do. We see tremendous results when we send just to those who click but don't convert. This is an actual case study from my work with clients. We actually increased revenue an additional 25% by doing the strategic resend. The other nice thing about strategic resends, you don't get spam complaints because they were very interested the first time. They're usually very interested again. You don't get unsubscribes. So it's a much better way to do resends. You also are going to see some crazy, crazy metrics. Again, this is that same case study that you saw the bar chart on a minute ago. You can see the click-through rate went from 0.5% to over 13%. Average order value, almost $500 as compared to $300 with the original send. Revenue per email over $2 as compared to like 4 cents for the original send. So it's a very small group, but it's a very safe group to resend to. You're not going to get unsubscribes, you're not going to get spam complaints, and you are going to get additional revenue and additional engagement. So definitely try a strategic resend. Let's talk about open and click-through rates. Now, I know that some of you and your marketing teams, that's as far as your tracking goes. All you can get is open and click-through rate. You don't have any integration with any other systems. And I understand that, but here's the thing. Assuming that those make good key performance indicators means showing you how good you do against your goal, showing you how well you're doing. It's a myth. They just don't. This is a really big one. So for instance, this is some research that I did on A/B split tests going back years. And what I found was only 7% of the time did the highest click-through rate version also have the highest revenue per email or the highest conversion rate. 7% of the time. 36% of the time, the highest click-through rate version was not the winner of the overall test when we looked at revenue per email or conversion rate, which what really matters. And then that big gray area, 57% of the time, the click-through rate variance wasn't statistically significant. So you kind of throw it away and you say they're basically the same. But there actually was a winner when we looked at revenue per email or conversion rate. So this is an important thing. This is the kind of chart, feel free to use it, that you can take to your management and say, hey, we need to get that integration in place. We're running off click-through rates and, we're probably only right about 7 or 10% of the time. Now, the other thing that this impacts, a lot of you, if you're doing subject line tests, are you using an open rate to try to determine the winner of your subject line test? Take a look at these numbers. Now this chart shows open rates and whether they're a good proxy for revenue per email or conversion rate. You can see that they're not. 20% of the time, sure. 20% of the time, it works, and the open rate also has the highest revenue per email, but 10% of the time it's wrong, and 70% of the time that open rate variance is not statistically significant, so you don't know. You're going to go away from it saying, hey, these are basically the same, there's no difference, but there actually is a winner if you take a look at revenue per email or conversion rate. So use this as a tool to get you the integrations you need to be looking at conversion rates or revenue per email or whatever is closer to a bottom line metric. Okay, let's talk about A/B split testing, one of my very favorite things in the world. I have been told more than once by more than one person that they are a waste of time. That's an issue. So I've been told they're a waste of time because the person always knows what's going to win. In that case, you're not testing far enough. You're not being, what's the word? You're not challenging yourself enough. You're not going far enough with your testing if you're always right, if you're always doing something that's so safe that you know it's going to work. I talked to a friend of mine who's in the industry, really respect him, been in the industry a long time, and he said, I test and I never see any, the results are never statistically significant. I never see anything statistically significant. Once again, if that's the case, you're not going far enough. You're not being aggressive enough with what you're testing because you really can get some great results. So this is definitely a myth. A/B split testing done properly can improve your bottom line performance dramatically. Let me give you an example. It wouldn't be a gene presentation if there weren't one slide that was completely not readable. So you're not supposed to read this. This is a list of all the tests I did over about a 2 or 3 month period for one of my clients. Campaign results, average lift in revenue per email, RPE, of 188%. So that's almost tripling revenue on average. The median lift right in the middle was about 53%, still not so bad. The range was 0.9 to 1,221% increase. We're going to talk about that big number in a minute. About 2/3 of the time, the test beat the control. So we were right about 2/3 of the time, which is actually pretty good. And if you're not right, you know you're not right, and you just don't move forward with that particular version. That 1,221% lift loss, that was for an email that had product images with long descriptions. We tested getting rid of the descriptions, the descriptive bullet points, and just putting product images, and it did a lot better. There was too much there for people to read. They were walking away. Finally, another test we did that was really interesting, they had a subject line that was a teaser subject line. It was something to the effect of, this is a holiday campaign. The hot new gift for Christmas this year is XXX is here. We did a subject line that basically said this, naming exactly what it was, is the hot gift this year. We got an increase in revenue per email of 730%. So sometimes that whole teaser thing doesn't actually work out. You need to test it with your audience and see. Marketing best practices are dusty old relics. I actually hear this a good bit. Here's the thing. I know that it's not popular. A lot of people who are working in email marketing don't have a traditional marketing background. They never learned some of these things. But this is a myth. These things are actually really important. They actually can help you a lot in what you're doing with your email marketing. So what are we talking about? Well, it's not that I don't iterate on them, and it's not that I don't even go against best practices once in a while. I do. But you have to understand what they are before you can understand how to iterate on them or tweak them or go against the grain on them and make it work. So what do I mean when I talk about foundations? I was really lucky. I actually started my career in online. I was trained at Georgetown. I got my master's degree with a concentration in marketing. But I didn't really learn direct response marketing until a couple years into my career when I went to work in the publishing industry. And in addition to doing online, I had to do offline direct mail. And that was fabulous education. It upped my email marketing game immensely. So what am I talking about? Foundations, things like target audience descriptions and personas, things like features, benefits, advantages analysis, things like identifying obstacles and objections and figuring out how to overcome them, prospect customer journeys, key messages, message maps with frequency and cadence. I run a workshop every 3 months or so on foundations, and it always fills up. It's always standing room only or online, just totally full. If you don't know these things, if you weren't trained, dive into it. Either take a workshop, go study yourself online. These things will definitely help you be a better email marketer, be a better marketer. It's really important. And all those people who tell you just throw that out the window and go with your gut, no, that's going to get you so far and then you're going to be stuck. All right, let me give you some additional resources. So if you're looking for answers, you want to make sure you're going to trusted sources. I have been a huge fan of Litmus for a very long time. The people there are so smart, love their blog. We feature a lot of their blog content in my email newsletter, so definitely check that out. Only Influencers, I was a fan long before I became general manager. It's the original community of email industry professionals. We have calls every Thursday where we bring in the author of an industry article and talk about something that's impacting the industry. We actually had a call today and we talked about what's it called? The new Bimmy like thing from Apple, and how that's going to impact the industry. We also talked about AI and when you should and shouldn't disclose it. So really interesting, cool group of people. Email Innovations World is the conference that Only Influencers runs every year. I am the programming chair of that, so I get all the speakers. That's a lot of fun. So if you like conferences and learning, definitely come. It's a great crowd and there's just a lot of really good information. And then check out my blog. I'm very proud of it. We've got years and years and years of information, a lot of case studies from my work with clients, a lot of A/B split testing, a lot of strategy and tactics, really geared toward helping you make your email marketing program more effective and more profitable. So I talked a little bit about OI, Only Influencers, the community of email industry professionals. It's $200 a year. You can also join for $20 a month. We also have a blog and an email newsletter. A lot of the people speaking here at Litmus write for the blog, and a lot of the industry leaders, Chad S. White, Ryan Phelan, Kath Pay, myself, just really smart people. So sign up for the newsletter. The newsletter will give you all of our blog content as well as content from our members that they publish outside of our own blog. And if you sign up today, on December 1st, which is fast approaching, we're going to do a drawing and one lucky subscriber will win a free registration to Email Innovations World 2025, which is our conference. That's actually a $1,400 value. Definitely worth checking out. We publish twice a week, lots of really good content. So check that out. And quick reminder to check out my blog and my website. Please do look for me on LinkedIn and connect. It was such a pleasure presenting to you. And yeah, would love to continue the conversation on LinkedIn. So take care, be safe, stay well. Bye.